Get out of advertising. Ask an advertising director who art directed a VW ad in 1989, and he'll tell you. Ask him who the director of the National Theater is, and he won't know. Most advertising people live within the world of advertising. 90% of advertising inspiration comes from other advertising. You'll see the same books in every agency. Certainly, a knowledge of the techniques and tricks of advertising can be very useful, possibly essential. True, people do look for something new, but sometimes it's something new to copy. To be original, seek your inspiration from unexpected sources. One of the most salient features of our culture is that there is so much bullshit. Everyone knows this. Each of us contributes his share, but we tend to take the situation for granted. Most people are rather confident of their ability to recognize bullshit and to avoid being taken in by it. So the phenomenon has not aroused much deliberate concern, nor attracted much sustained inquiry. In consequence, we have no clear understanding of what bullshit is, why there is so much of it, or what functions it serves. And we are consequently we lack a conscientiously developed appreciation of what it means to us. In other words, we have no theory. I propose the development of a theoretical understanding of bullshit, mainly by providing some tentative and exploratory philosophical analysis. Interesting. Escape 1942. In San Francisco, I watched them march into the shipyards with their hard hats carrying their lunch pails. My father had written me from Los Angeles. If you don't want to go to war, then work in the shipyards. Help your country and make some money. I was insane. I just sat in a small room and stared at the walls. Now, many of those shipyard workers have found that they were exposed to asbestos poisoning, and some of them are now doomed to a slow, incurable death. One thing that I found out early about my father's advice: ignore it. Without remorse, and you could avoid many of life's ordinary agonies, there would always be enough of the other kind. Hello there. Welcome to Bitcoin Talk Show. I seem to have terrible lighting today. That was a little bit of the Bitcoin Standard. No, it wasn't the Bitcoin Standard. It's Bukowski. Ha, 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 ha. I put poetry inside of Bukowski. I don't know. Poetry inside the Bitcoin Standard, but a little bit of Bukowski, a little bit of It's Not How Good You Are, It's How Good You Want to Be, the world's best-selling book by Paul Arden, and of course, a little bit of On Bullshit by Harry G. Frankfurt. But we're talking about bullshit, and we're talking about advertising, we're talking about flipping, and we're talking about no snitching out there. So let's just get it started on today's Bitcoin Talk Show. Give us a thumbs up and a share so that more people can find the show. Today is Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. My name is Thomas Hunt. Here's what's happening on the chat. Here's what's happening today in Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is up 1.54% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 6,460, a high of 6,477, and a low of 6,261. That's $1 for 15,502 Satoshis, just about the same as it was yesterday. Boring. Let's look at the top 10 altcoins sorted by volume against the price of Bitcoin. Ethereum down a quarter, Bitcoin Cash down 3/4. EOS up 2%, Ethereum Classic down half a point, Ripple up 1.25%, Litecoin down 1%, Dash up 1%, Ontology is even, and Qtum is down 2.5 points. Checking out the top 10, or the top 5 at least, decentralized applications. FOMO 3D still hitting it hard with 2,488 users. IDEX behind them with 1,700 users. Fork Delta in third with around 1,000. POWHD, 3D, whatever, 950 users. Ethereum on 500. Bancor and CryptoKitties rounding out the top 7 with around 300 daily active users. Still looks around 5,000 or so daily active users for decentralized applications. Checking out the most active blockchains, it's still EOS, Steam, BitShares, Ethereum, and Bitcoin. Ethereum is still clogged with 57,000 unconfirmed transactions. Bitcoin is back to 50-50. 46% of the blocks are full. As always, you can support the World Crypto Network by donating now to the Bitcoin or crazy altcoin QR codes on our screen, or by giving us a thumbs up and a share. Your comments, tweets, and especially timestamps help spread word about this show. We couldn't do it without you, and we wouldn't want to anyway. You can also support us at patreon.com/WCN, where 32 patrons donate $239 a month to support the World Crypto Network, or at patreon.com/madbitcoins, where 79 patrons are donating $489 a month, as we still can't seem to best that $500 barrier. Over at Tallycoin, our campaign to raise $1 million is still going on. We've raised 0.5253 Bitcoin towards our goal of $1 million. You can donate now, right now, on your QR code on your screen. Even $1 helps us test out Tallycoin. Our most recent donation was on the 21st. That's 2 days ago, and it was 0.0002222. There were so many twos. Let's check out the World Crypto Network, where we're still struggling to get over 61,000 subscribers. We have 60,874. So if you know anyone that's not subscribed to the World Crypto Network, please ask them to subscribe down below and click that little bell to get notified about every new video. And now let's check out yesterday's shows. Yesterday was Wednesday. We had one show, Bitcoin Talk Show. The chat was very active as usual. We received 135 thumbs up. That's pretty good. And we got 1,358 views. That's almost 10 times the amount of likes we received. It's almost like the likes are directly related to the views. I wonder. Let's check out the comments. Crypto Noobs has a timestamp and says, excellent argument about Ayn Rand at 24 and 4 seconds. I agree, it was great. Roy Westberger has a lot to say today. Stop auditing the Fed, 5940. If we don't audit the Pentagon, why should we audit the Fed? Don't all those secret agencies have their own printing presses in their basements anyway? Who should know? Who should care? It's patriotic printing. I agree with him on that one. He also says at 3438 that you can hear a discussion about compassion and whether or not people should have a nice job, a small house, a decent life. But then he goes into a very controversial subject and said, should they have their reproduction limited? And wonders if Ayn Rand ever addressed reproduction rates or birth control. I don't recall her directly addressing it. I do know in the book Anthem, she had children that were adopted by the state. And again, she was using a boogeyman and a straw man of the state to show how bad it would be if you were in a state asylum or institution or orphanage kind of thing. So that's kind of related, but I'm not sure if she directly addressed it. Jamie Gandelion says, big dreams are worth more than the amount in your bank or crypto wallet. It means you believe in your ability to keep accumulating and expanding, even when people doubt you. And I would agree with that. It kind of reminds me of what they were talking about on Joe Rogan just a minute ago. I was listening to him talk to Chuck, I still can't say his name right, but the author of Fight Club, Palahniuk, I don't know, but he's fantastic. And it was totally interesting. And he said something along the lines of, better to be poor and creative than rich and not. And of course, Palahniuk, God, I hope I say that right. But anyway, he was referring to something in his life that happened recently where his accountant stole from him. Sounds like significant monies. He kind of sloughed it off, but at first it was like 3 million. Then it sounded like he also stole from the estates of Mario Puzo, author of The Godfather, Edward Gorey, fantastic author of those books with the cartoons, the animated or the gory books. I don't, you know them if you know them. They're very haunting. But he stole maybe $25 million and they can't find it and it's gone. And Palahniuk describes basically that he has to write to live now. He's back in it with the rest of us despite Fight Club, all these other movies, this incredible success, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, Palahniuk should have bought Bitcoin. He could have stored it himself. He would have been fine. He could have checked on it all the time and known where it is and how much was there. Very unfortunate to see him go down like Billy Joel, to make all this work, earn all this security, and then not be able to receive that security. But then again, maybe it makes him write more. Maybe as a greedy person that wants to read more books, that makes him write more. But what about this idea that it's better to be poor and creative than rich and not? Because he didn't seem that worried. He was like, "Yeah, I'm just going to go write another book. I'm going to go hang out someplace, do my thing, talk to people, figure this out." He wasn't about the money. I don't know. They're saying in the chat they think it's better to be rich. Oh, chat's disagreeing with you, Palahniuk. Let's see what's going on. We're gonna go all the way back to the chat. I was listening to the song "Surrender." It's a great song by Cheap Trick. Checking it out. Seeing where the party is. It's just me and Mustafa. That's all it was. But I had a plan for more books, and I knew that would make the show more popular. So I just had to do it. Everyone is checking in this morning. They're saying Richard Hart has been doing bikini crypto. And yeah, I definitely happened upon one of Richard's videos. I don't think it's the best idea. I have a hard time saying it's the worst idea. The way he seemed to explain it on his show is that, well, I have an audience of dudes, so I'm going to shrug my shoulders and ask this pretty girl or have her ask him questions about Bitcoin. I mean, it would have been, I don't know, she didn't have to be in a bikini and she didn't have to be in Richard's strange basement throne room. Has a real creepy Silence of the Lambs kind of feel to it. But if that's what you're into and that's what it takes to get you into crypto, I don't know. I don't think he's really going to hit the most of the new targets. But as far as serving his own group, a lot of people are really good at serving their own group and speaking to them, whether with charts or pretty girls or those kind of things. And if they want to do that, that's fine. But we all know where that's leading. It's internal, right? The word for it, it's not a polite word. The word is circle jerk, right? Everyone is just having such a great time. Like they say in Reservoir Dogs, let's not all start sucking each other's dicks just yet. We just went PG-13, maybe R-rated. Oh well, blown it again. Puns. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where Richard got the girl. It was interesting to have her questions though. And her questions seemed honest, but then again, I didn't watch the whole video, so I don't know how bad it got. I'm not going to vouch for the whole thing. This guy says it's better to be rich than poor and creative. Being rich and doing nothing is boring. Better to be creative. And maybe this is a good time to bring up Richard Hart because Richard Hart has done a lot of good videos about what he did when he got rich. And I don't know how Richard got rich. I've watched a couple of the videos. He says he sold stereos and he was good at buying things cheaper and selling them for more. Sounds fair to me. Other people say he's the spam king and that he sold products online through spam advertising back in the day. I don't know anything about that. But I've read what I've read on the internet. What I do know about Richard is the good things he's done in his videos. And one of the things he talks about is how when he was rich and young, he tried to play video games until his eyes fell out. And I know I've certainly tried that out the last couple of days. I've been heavy into Watch Dogs. I've been completing side missions as I I'm enjoying the game so much, I don't just wanna beat it, I wanna kinda 100% it. I want to enjoy all that the game has to offer, and I know if I finish the story, I'll stop and I won't enjoy it as much. But still, I'm wasting significant parts of my life, playing these stupid video games, and I need to stop. And I think Richard Hart got to a point where He was just video gaming and partying and whatever else. And he's like, this isn't doing anything for society. And he makes in his very first videos, he talks about the dangers of poker, how much money you can lose, the danger of alcohol and other things. I don't know if he still, backs and believes these ideas, but he just generally talks about that being rich isn't so important. It's more important to have something to do, to have a cause or to have something. And maybe that's why Roger Ver is so into Bitcoin Cash. He was rich and he had Bitcoin, and Bitcoin was spreading really well and doing really good. And he just got bored. He needed something more. I've seen that tweet that's going around where it talks about how Roger was into every single fork of Bitcoin for a long time, probably because he had those fee problems. Like we said before, he had a lot of fees. So he wanted every single smaller feed fork of Bitcoin. And if you look back on that, it just doesn't look good. It's not a good legacy. It's the kind of thing where the way that Dan Larimer keeps leaving his coins. He left BitShares to make Steemit. He left Steemit to make EOS. He left EOS. No, I'm sorry, he hasn't left EOS yet. But that's the kind of thing. Same thing for Jeb McCaleb, who left Mt. Gox. Then he went to Ripple. Then he left Ripple. Then he went to Stellar. Then he left Stellar. Sorry, he hasn't left Stellar yet. But these kind of things follow you. And again, it's not fair. It's not fair to them either. They shouldn't have that reputation just because they had 3 jobs. But it is kind of different when you leave your community behind. And that's certainly something that Roger did. Roger left the Bitcoin community behind, and then he said, hey, come with me. Come with me. This is a better thing. And it's just the strangest thing. Roger and Brian Armstrong, these other people who Bitcoin has made them obscenely rich, and yet they still don't like Bitcoin. It probably shows that they need a creative influence. They need an outlet, right? Maybe Roger could take up painting instead of starting a new coin. Maybe in investing in what's it called? ICOs and everything. Brian Armstrong could get into painting or sculpture. Maybe sculpture would be good instead of taking Coinbase down the Cripsy road. But it's already the die's been cast. The ships have sailed. We're going to see what happens now, and it doesn't look too good. So let's see what's going on in the chat. Health before wealth. That's a good one. I agree with that. Charlie LeCamp says, good luck buying art supplies when you're broke. Definitely true. Definitely true. The world needs more bikinis in crypto, but by men. Oh, equality right there. Everyone should be naked. Jeff says, good morning from Pittsburgh. Very nice. A.R. Forgenson is cynical on Richard, but probably right. He says he just wants the controversy. And that's something people hardly think about anymore because they get triggered so easily. But if you got triggered by Richard Hart's bikini video, maybe he tricked you by obviously tricking you. So let's see. I had a bikini girl on Fremont Street, sure. But we just walked by her and she wanted to talk to us. Also, I kept that segment very short and it was edited. But yeah, I should have those girls ask me questions. Fair enough. Not a bad idea. And again, on Fremont Street, it's a normal thing to wear a bikini or a Spider-Man suit or a Darth Vader suit. But we also tried to get that guy in there to make it equally offensive for both, so that everyone will be offended. Oh, Crypto Daddy says we're rated X, no longer child friendly. Doesn't remember the line from Reservoir Dogs. Pretty sure it's in there. I would take the Pepsi challenge. It's in Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction. But my bet is Reservoir Dogs. Let's find out. All right, here we go. Getting the Reservoir Dogs screenplay. Here we go. Dicks. How many dicks was that? No, maybe it's not. Maybe it's in Pulp Fiction. I don't know. Let's see. Script slug. Nice. It's not here. Read script. Oh, PDF. Come on. Ah, here it is. Yeah, it was Harvey Keitel, so it's definitely the same actor, but it was in Pulp Fiction. After they finished cleaning up the car, picking up pieces of brain. Every time my fingers touch brain, I'm Superfly TNT. You know, I'm the guns of the Navarone. So many great lines. But yeah, the wolf says, well, let's not all start sucking each other's dicks quite yet. Phase 1 is complete. Clean the car, which moves us right along to phase 2. Clean up you two. And then he cuts quickly to them being sprayed prison style in the backyard with the hose. So very close, not rather Reservoir Dogs. Oh, my wife just asked me to put AirPods in my ears. Oh, we've offended. We crossed the line. Hi from Estonia. Did Bitcoin get the ETF? No. Bitcoin price defends key support despite Bitcoin ETF rejections. Oh, woe is us. And now tell us how it will go both directions. Bitcoin could remain well bid above 6,230, the August 20th low, in the next 24 hours. That would pave the way for a sustained rise towards $7,000 in the short term. If the support at 6230 is breached, then bears may push the cryptocurrency down to the recent low of 5,859. A UTC close below 5,755 at the June low would signal a resumption of the long-run bear market and would open the doors to $5,000, the psychological support. So let's check the price right now. It's up a little bit, 6,473. Looking at the price closer up, looks like it's been higher and it's been lower. Exciting stuff. SEC rejects 9 Bitcoin ETFs applications from ProShares, Direction, and Granite Shares. Nice graphic. The SEC punching Bitcoin. Yes, the disapprovals came one day ahead of the anticipated deadline. Hi-oh. Got to get those trades in early. Let's see. The SEC stated, the exchange has not met its burden under the Exchange Act and the Commission's rules of practice to demonstrate that its proposal is consistent with the requirements of the Exchange Act Section 6 Beta Sub 5, in particular the requirement that a national securities exchange's rules be designed to prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices. All right, translation. The Bitcoin market can be manipulated. How can they control the Bitcoin market? The gold market can be manipulated, and yet there's an ETF for gold. This doesn't sound good. The SEC has today reinforced its qualms over inadequate resistance to price manipulation. How do you develop that? In an insufficiently sized Bitcoin's derivative market. In the case of ProShares 2 ETFs, and repeated in the other 2 disapproval orders, the SEC stated that, among other things, the exchange has offered no record evidence to demonstrate that Bitcoin futures markets are markets of significant size. That failure is critical because, as explained below, the exchange has failed to establish that other means to prevent fraudulent and manipulative acts and practices will be sufficient, and therefore surveillance sharing with a regulated market of significant size related to Bitcoin is necessary. So you can't have an ETF unless your market is of a significant size, and you can't have a market of a significant size unless you can have an ETF. And so you can't have an ETF unless you have a market of significant size. What was that catch called again? Catch 22. Everything around here seems, if you wanted to go fight this war, I'd have to stop you because you'd be crazy. If you don't want to go fight this war, you must be crazy, but I have to send you to fight. As a March 2018 registration statement from the SEC noted, the ProShares funds do not intend to hold Bitcoin futures contracts through expiration, but instead intend either to close or roll. I like it, they roll their respective positions. This has been specifically designated as a potential risk for the two ETFs in question. Bang, bang. In addition to the extreme volatility and low liquidity attributed to both Bitcoin spot and derivative markets. All right. In today's three orders, you got to like doing them together. The agency emphasizes that its disapproval does not rest on an evaluation of whether or not Bitcoin or blockchain technology more generally has utility or value as an innovation or as an investment. Oh, I'm glad for your approval. Thank you. That's kind. Wow, it's nice. It echoes the concerns they'd already articulated in their initial rejection of the Winklevi ETF. When the spot market is unregulated, there must be significant regulated derivatives markets related to the underlying asset with which the exchange can enter into a surveillance sharing agreement. We just don't have enough information about Bitcoin transactions. There's not enough transactions on the books. So we need to get more transactions on the books, which we can't get unless we get a Bitcoin ETF and an influx of more money, which is, of course, literally more transactions. And if we got more transactions on the book, then we could get an ETF. But we can't get an ETF unless we get more transactions on the books. All right. So that was fun. Let's move on. A UK watchdog grants third e-money license to cryptocurrency. Doesn't look like they're having any troubles overseas. WireX, whose main product is a prepaid debit card that converts crypto into fiat for everyday use. I love how everyone's using fiat now. That's great. But yes, great for WireX, great for the UK. Everyone is talking about Bitcoin and the SEC and the ETF and the price. We're talking about defending the support. We're talking about jumping $400. We're talking about shatters hopes for a cryptocurrency bull run. Shatters hopes. There it is, New York State to see Bitcoin mining operation powered by shattered hopes. Ripple CTO thinks proof of work is a technological dead end, but he's Ripple's CEO. See how the headline it works if you just keep reading it. You have to read it in a loop. That's the news of the day. Everything is read in a loop today. Bitcoin technical sign suggests sell-off may be almost over. May be almost. You got to hedge there. And the U.S. Federal Trade Commission issues warning on Bitcoin blackmail. The SEC ruling on Bitcoin ETF shatters hope for a cryptocurrency bull run. Look at that. They made a cartoon, kind of. All right, nice. New York State to see Bitcoin mining operation powered by hydroelectric dam in Q4 2018. There it is. Once more, it doesn't matter what they say about Bitcoin, doesn't matter about the ETF. Bitcoin is useful. It's a great way to store money and to store value. Maybe you have extra electricity that you're producing from falling water. So the water's already falling, and you start creating electricity, and you're like, what are we going to do with all this electricity? And you could buy batteries, but no one's really buying electricity off of batteries right now. The grid sucks. So what are you going to do? Just waste that electricity? Well, certainly you could make sparks and light show and, light the forest on fire. You have all kinds of options. But you're probably going to waste that electricity rather than even just sparking it off into the sky like a Tesla coil or something. Wait a minute. Instead of wasting that electricity, we could get Bitcoin miners and we could turn that electricity into value, i.e., Bitcoin. And sure, you could instantly trade that value for dollars if you want to lock in, or if you want to, keep that Bitcoin, you could see how that value goes. Anyway, Bitcoin allows energy to be converted into value and transferred around. That's amazing. U.S. Federal Trade Commission issues warning on Bitcoin blackmail scam targeting men. Well, that makes sense. You don't wanna have, targeting men, because if you targeted women, it probably wouldn't work. There's not enough, target area. That's just like they say for Macintosh. They're like, "Oh, no one cares about Apple, because Windows is a much bigger target area." One more reason to be with Apple. Here's how the scam works. Scammers have been sending letters to men demanding payment using Bitcoin in exchange for keeping quiet about alleged affairs. The letter also explains how to use Bitcoin to make the payment. So it sounds like it's just a fake scam letter that they send around to people. Are you feeling guilty? Is your refrigerator running? Uh, you know, when did you stop beating your wife? Stop? And it's time for the World Crypto Network. Bitcoin price, news, opinion, hot blockchain action. That's right. It's Twitter time. And if you'd bought $1 million in Venezuela's local currency when President Maduro came to power in 2013, it would now be worth $3.40. Yo, so stupid. Now, DST denies investing into the Bitmain pre IPO, even though it was reported everywhere. Samson Mao is running out of popcorn as people keep backing out and saying they're not involved in the Bitmain pre IPO, with many even saying, "We never invested in the first place," and some accusing Jihan Wu of presenting bad numbers or inaccurate information. Max Kaiser talked with a young entrepreneur in Puerto Rico who's excited about Bitcoin, but Jackson Palmer pushed back. Jackson saying, "These ego driven crypto millionaires invading Puerto Rico are a menace and is going to end badly. Their fake Burning Man spirituality is simply a facade to protect them from being seen as rich colonialists. The locals, thankfully, see right through it." And I've watched this video that Jackson's referencing. I definitely recommend people check it out. Tony Lane Casserly seems to be down there in Venezuela. She used to work with Cointelegraph. A lot of people in Bitcoin know her, but she seems to be advising Brock Pierce, who's now a billionaire. So I hope that turns out well. Simply hoping for the best. But Max seems to think it's a good thing for Puerto Rico. Not so sure. We had a great White House briefing yesterday. Wow, it was fun. They had to defend the dual guilty pleas of Cohen and Manafort. She was dodging dress questions in her prom dress there. It was amazing. It was a must see TV. I don't know if they'll ever have another one. We can only hope. And to think, Cobra Bitcoin wanted to nuke the entire Bitcoin mining industry. All we needed to do was to give Bitmain time to shoot their own toes off. And then they did. It's right about that. It doesn't look good. But I do think that they'll get the IPO. I mean, there's tons of dumb money out there, tons of it. NVK says there is no longer a Bitcoin scaling debate. And as you can see, the old system here, we had full blocks because people were spamming the blocks because they got a high percentage of that spam money back. So it was efficient for them to spam the blocks to try to protect so that they could have the ASIC boost 30% advantage just one day more, just one day more, just one day more, until suddenly it wasn't and SegWit took over. Slightly larger blocks and lower fees because of the new way of sending. I really enjoy this article about the abandoned apocalyptic architecture of one bold 1970s retail giant, and it was called Best Products. And as it says here in the subtitle, it's the end of the world as we know it, and Best Products is having a sale. Look at this amazing facade here in Houston, Texas, the interminate, indeterminate facade. And you can see it looks like a store that's collapsed and is shutting down. They had this store where it was slanted, and it looks like the store comes up and goes down. It's off at an angle. They also had, let's see, this store with a peeling concrete. That's pretty amazing. Again, these were just like Targets. And then this store in Sacramento, California, that I definitely drove by several times. And sadly, I can say it was turned into a Best Buy. But this store, the mouth of the store, the notch, would open and close at night. At night, the store looked like an entire box, like you had no idea what was inside it. It was pretty amazing. And then they had the forest store, that looks like the forest is overtaken it, and it's purposely designed to look like this. They finally have the inside out store. Very, very strange, huh? Best Products used to say, "Hey, we're gonna go down to Best and get some things," but you can't anymore. And Andy found the news about the SEC. Meanwhile, the fire department is joining the net neutrality suit after Verizon cuts their data access during the wildfire. Verizon, of course, offered them unlimited data right up until the point they started using it. Then they throttled them and slowed them down, put them in the slow lane. Bad news from Verizon. Let's see. Inventors of the most important technologies in Bitcoin: dual signatures and Merkle trees, Merkle; elliptic curve crypto, Koblitz; malicious fault tolerant consensus, Lamport; and elliptic curve crypto, independent inventor, Miller. From Nick Scabo, who might be Satoshi. And just a shout out to everyone in the chat who gave us a thumbs up and a share. It's really working. We have 121 live viewers. I don't know where they came from, but they're here now. Crypto Graffiti writes, the SEC denied the ETF again. See, nobody cares. A great scene of Newman from the original Jurassic Park. Great movie. And yes, breaking news: SEC denies it. Buttcoin writes, bros posting to Bitcoin ATMs is my new favorite genre of art. And he features a couple of bros hanging next to Bitcoin ATMs, including Mad Bitcoins. How about that? The famous cow ATM. I'll bet this tweet got more retweets because people love that cow ATM. And we've got a new upgrade to Tallycoin coming soon that's going to give us more information and look more like a block explorer with a goal. The goal of Tallycoin is to raise funds. And spoiler alert, this looks like it's my Tallycoin. This is the Mad Bitcoins fundraiser. I know because we've been stuck at 05253 for a long time now. But very cool. A DJ booth continues to improve Tallycoin. Let's see. Ricardo Spagni at Fluffy Pony writes, many of you asked me, it's true. Crypto events at hotels, conferences, etc. officially banned in China. Many crypto media accounts also banned. My thoughts? As expected. Just to put this in perspective, the majority of them are scammers. And Fluffy Pony writes, congratulations, ICOs. You finally accomplished something. You must be so proud. And they say Dash is having trouble with their burn rate, and that Dash might be able not be able to continue if the price drops lower. Some people want to fire the Dash CEO for mismanagement. Interesting stuff from the Dash people. Meanwhile, it sounds like Roger allegedly paid CoinMarketCap so he could keep his rebranding attack active on all his wallets and Bitcoin.com platforms. That's why CoinMarketCap is blocking the listing of the altcoin joke Bitcoin Core. Roger got to them first. Maybe so, maybe so. No one knows. And there was a little trouble over at BitMEX. Bam. BitMEX said they were going to have some downtime. Hackers took advantage of this, had a DOS attack during the downtime, and were able to take advantage of the system. Many people lost their funds, especially people shorting or longing as the price went crazy down and crazy up, or something like that, maybe in reverse. But let's keep checking it out. Which Bitcoin is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is Bitcoin. China seeks to block access to 124 foreign crypto exchanges. Oh, it's time for a crackdown. That's right. You know it. Crackdown. This must be a crackdown. What? How could this not be a crackdown? Is this regulation? Oh, Coinbase, Coindesk, you're getting lazy in your old age. What happened to crackdown? Crackdown. You know it's a crackdown. Shout out to my friend James Bang. PR Hacks is joining He's joining a show in Hong Kong on channel HKIBC, channel 76. Check it out, my friend James Bang on TV in Hong Kong, talking about Bitcoin, ICOs, and everything in between. Very cool. Congratulations, James. IRC was born 30 years ago. Can you believe it? Did you know that IRC Internet Relay Chat was developed at the Department of Information Processing Science of University of Oulu in northern Finland? By Jakarta Oikarin. What kind of IRC memories do you have? Don't say anything rude. Very cool. 30 years of IRC to be this old. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has taken stunning pictures of the moon in 4K. Definitely check those out. Got that right here on the Twitter. Oh, it's got sound. Oh, yeah. And really cool stuff. Pictures of the moon. People fighting on Twitter. I don't know. Everyone loves people fighting on Twitter. Andy Hoffman says, "This is how trader gurus fleece you. If it rises to 7,500 or if it plunges to 5,000, he claims to be right. While either way, you are destroyed. I watched this scam for 15 years in precious metals. I'm short-term bearish, but long-term bullish. It's a catnip for the 80 percenters," says Andy Hoffman. Ooh, throwing down. Fed officials worry that the trade war poses the biggest threat to the strong economy. That's right. If you chop out something's legs, even a giant like the United States economy, it will fall over. Watch out. Speaking of chopping out something's legs, the vanishing idealism of Burning Man. Is it starting to fail? Has it become just another party for rich people, an item on their bucket list, rather than something people participate in? I don't know. Seems pretty fair to me. The world's top maker of Bitcoin mining chips, Bitmain, may be losing its technological edge, according to an analyst. Let's go back over to the chat, see what's going on. Thanks so much to Anthony, who says hello from Paris, France. Hello, Anthony. Thanks for the donation. I definitely agree with One Man Army here. He says CBOE now has over 30 days to make sure their ducks are in a row because of yesterday's denials. CBOE has the best shot at ETF approval. Then, when it does, FOMO will hit and will be at all-time highs. Seems pretty right. If we get the ETF. Let's see. Indiegogo is letting firms issue their own cryptocurrencies classified as securities. Huh? So it's an ICO, but regulated by the SEC. Brilliant move by Indiegogo. I'd said for a while that crowdfunding with these tokens was similar to what Indiegogo did, but you could trade the tokens back for money. So if you overinvested in someone's crowdfund, you could get out. Also, if it went up in value, you could get out. Something like that. So it sounds like Indiegogo is going to try that in December. Well, no, they had a push into the ICO market in December, but they're going to let everyone print their own coin. Well, some firms on Indiegogo will print their own coin. Crazy. All right, we'll see how that goes. Stephen King says impeach. Nice. We had some good weather, but you have to get up at 6 a.m. if you want to see it. A little sunburst action there. And then, oh yeah, this whole thing happened with the president. Before we get political, let's open up the calls. Let's get the calls going. And just one thing on this political. So the president said flipping ought to be outlawed. He means being a witness for the government that is trying to uphold the law. He said, and I quote, "It's called flipping, and it ought to be illegal. Okay. All right. Uh-huh. So the president of the United States went on television and talked despairingly against the idea of cooperating with a federal investigation. Okay. Some people said it's a post-judicial world and that truth is not truth. And of course, there's nothing to see here, as the chief law enforcement officer of the United States starts a "Don't Snitch" campaign. Nothing to see here. Don't look at that. Look away. Look away. Nothing's happening. As people say, it's stunning. This is stunning. They say, straight out of Goodfellas, never rat on your friends, and always keep your mouth shut. So that's what I thought we were going to talk about. But maybe instead we'll talk about Chuck Palahniuk on the Joe Rogan show and just what a brilliant appearance it was. I'm about halfway through. And something about the Joe Rogan show, he even talked about this in the break, getting the two of them together with headphones on, talking to each other, forgetting about the audience, just telling stories. Palahniuk has this collection of, I don't know what to call them, but horrifying true stories, basically these dark tales that expose who we are, but at the same time threaten other people because they're so horrible, right? Life can be horrible. Horrible things happen. And these people would rather live in this sanitized version of life. So they kicked Palahniuk out of their writing group. He had a group of people. They'd read each other's stories, and they read one of Palahniuk's, and they're like, "I don't think we want to read any of these anymore." And I know that how that can be, and that's dark. And Palahniuk talked about it and just the other things and how he gets his ideas and where he gets these stories. And sometimes because he's capable and willing to tell these kind of horrible stories, other people come to him and give him even more horrible stories. But he helps them, giving them the power to tell their horrible story, which is actually true, whereas his might be an amalgam or made up of other things. It's a really wide-ranging conversation. I've read several of Palahniuk's books, but never really heard him speak before. So it was interesting not only just hearing him speak, but hearing Joe Rogan ask him questions. I thought he had a lot of good questions. He was very interested in Fight Club and all these other things. It was interesting to hear Palahniuk say what was exciting to him was not, the back of the book or getting the book in the bookstore, but something about when Fight Club got into the zeitgeist and people started saying the first rule of this is that the first rule of this. And he also said he was, although I don't really like its usage, he was excited by the word snowflake. That people took snowflake from the movie and started using it just everywhere. That was what excited him. Very interesting conversation with Palahniuk. He also talked about it was better to be poor and creative than rich and bored. So let's go ahead and open up the call lines right now. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this into the chat so the chat people know that it's time and the time is now. You can call us at 518 600 1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. It's around 9:53, so we'll try to keep the call lines open. Maybe for an hour. Remember, it's first come, first serve on the calls. Try to be ready with your microphone or headphones if you're using a computer, or if you're just using your phone, try to have a quiet room. Try to know what you want to ask a question or what you want to talk about. So give us a call right now. We'll try to keep the phone lines open. If there are no calls, we might read a poem or something worse. Let's see what else is going on. Palahniuk talked about books as a sedative. He talked about how movies and TV shows are easy to consume. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is just by Bitcoins out of Jacksonville area, Florida.
All right. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today? Oh, you got an echo. You got to turn the speaker down.
Is that any better?
Check. Yep, sounds good. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today or anything else we talked about?
No, Bitcoin is great. Bitcoin is great every day. I just wanted to also say that the Chuck Palahniuk and Joe Rogan podcast. I listened to that last night trying to go to sleep, and I actually stayed up and listened to the whole thing. It invoked many thoughts and feelings inside of me that are, I think, are very pertinent to today's life, and making me think about a lot of things.
I agree. I thought it was a really honest conversation between the two of them, and Palahniuk told many stories. They're kind of dark. I don't know if we want to repeat them here, but it was great because he got to the soul of the truth with those stories, and you were horrified because they were real, but at the same time, they hit you and they hit home. Palahniuk talked about his mother and father, how they passed away, certain things that a lot of people everyone can identify with, and yeah, I thought it was really good, and, such a name, Palahniuk means practically, Mark Twain or Vonnegut, something like that, in my mind. So to hear him actually interviewed in almost real time, I caught it today, it happened yesterday, still, very modern, very much a part of our times, and to hear what he's up to and what he's thinking about was really great.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He definitely shaped some of my formative years, going back 10, 12 years ago with his literature. Very, very powerful works. But one just little short thing that I wanted to call in and talk about is I really do think the selling pressure for Bitcoin is ending. People might still want to go crazy leverage shorts and whatnot, but my crypto guy, uh, he actually called me yesterday wondering if he could buy back any of the Bitcoins that he sold me over the years because he can't find anybody willing to sell their Bitcoin anymore locally.
That's pretty funny. I would definitely say no. That's a good sign something's valuable when someone wants to come and buy it back from you.
Yeah, and I mean, you can guess what I told him, right?
No.
Yeah, absolutely not. Good luck, brother. Bitcoin for the long, long. But Thomas, thank you again for another show and being for us here today. And carry on, everyone.
Thanks so much for the call. Give us a call anytime. And you can call us now on Skype. Let's see, it says something. On Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word, or at 518 600 1949. We're echoing back. That's a new feature of Skype. Let's see if I close Skype, it goes away. Ah, huh, I'm smarter than the Skype application. There it is. That makes it work. But we're checking out the price of Bitcoin. Always looks sad looking at that 19,000 peak. That was a lot. But looking at these lows, we still aren't going below 5,816 if we look at the bottoms of all these lines. If we look at where we are right now, we're at 6,449. So you can give us a call right now. We'll try to keep the show going, or we'll chat with the chat. Selling pressure. Well, it's mostly trading activity of what we're seeing, but still we're in this bearish trend line that everyone keeps talking about. We need to break out. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Oh, are you there?
Yeah, I'm echoing. Are you echoing?
Yeah, can you hear me better now?
How about now? All right.
Yeah, that's
Sounds.
right.
What's your name and where are you calling from? Sorry.
Oh, it's just Zach here from Christchurch.
All right. How's it going, Zach? Good to hear from you again.
Good, good. Am I on your map yet? You have your little map you put your pins in.
There you are, Zach in Christchurch.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I thought I'd give you a call up and talk about a few things you mentioned. I think it's really interesting that you've been talking about Atlas Shrugged and Ayn Rand.
Oh yeah, getting me in a lot of trouble there. They don't like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the Atlas Shrugged movies came out around, I think, what, 2012, 2013, 14, kind of when Bitcoin was becoming more I don't like to use the word mainstream, but mainstream for want of a better word. So I think a lot of people are looking into finance, and Atlas Shrugged was being because of the movies coming out, was being promoted quite a bit back then. So I think a lot of people which were early adopters into Bitcoin probably came across Ayn Rand one way or another. Like, I know I watched the movies, and then I went on to watch quite a few YouTube videos and interviews with Ayn Rand, which I found quite interesting.
I don't know about the movies, man. I've seen those movies. They're really bad. I felt they did her a complete disservice by keeping the language wholly intact. It was like they went exactly to the book and made an exact copy of it, but then they tried to say it was happening in the future. It wasn't even the 50s, all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I just thought it was a. And then did they even make a third one? I don't think they made the conclusion. I don't know. I don't recall how they handled the speech and so forth.
I think they did make the third one, and I think they did bring it to a conclusion. I've never read the books. I just remember I just remember them promoting the movies, and I thought, oh, that sounds really interesting philosophy. And yeah, I just downloaded the movies and watched them. I agree they weren't very good. I mean, I don't think they got very good ratings either. But yeah, I then went on to watch a lot of YouTube videos with Ayn Rand, because you can actually find a lot of actual interviews with her. And yeah, I definitely rejected a lot of her philosophy. I just believe that if people work together, it's better than being just, really like, I'm going to be, self-actualized and go out there and do everything myself. Like, you get a lot more done when, you don't have to be dependent on other people, but when you can work together with people and bring all your talents to bear, that's a much better way to kind of go through life. But yeah, like you said, like Ayn Rand did come from, a hard background, and that made her a hard person. And I think in her personal life, her beliefs didn't really work out so great. So yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on her. But you probably have maybe read those books, and yeah, you did say you had spent hours looking into Ayn Rand the other day. So I thought Thomas probably knows a lot more about this than probably most people out there.
Yeah, basically, I read most or all of her books in high school. And I really do speak from experience when I think it's kind of like a computer virus that's targeted at independent minded, smart people. And the goal of the virus is to teach you not to work with anyone and to think that, you can somehow exist on your own, or that restarting society is somehow an acceptable idea, and that these are really pragmatic solutions when they're not. They're not pragmatic. It's not a stoic or a reasonable idea to restart society like John Galt, or to, the free speech, or not free speech, but the Free State group up in New Hampshire. These kind of ideas, not as useful as actually working with society. The people who actually work with things get a lot more done, is what I would say. So I just think, in terms of output and effort and success, these ideas aren't the best. So.
Yeah, definitely agree. So I'll leave Ayn Rand on the shelf, so to speak, and move on from there. But yeah, it did bring me to kind of think about. I've also been thinking about just what's happening in the world, and different currencies. I mean, obviously, you're talking about Venezuela the other day, but just even I don't know if you saw, but the finance minister, I think is Minister Ma, in Germany, he said that he wants to aggressively form a new payment system which can compete with the SWIFT payment system. So I mean, most of your listeners will know the SWIFT payment system is the system used by the Americans, and that's what Visa, Mastercard, most of the banks use to move the greenback around the world. And yeah, the German finance minister is aggressively seeking to start form his own payment network. Mainly, well, he's using Iran and the Iranian deal as an excuse to do this. So yeah, obviously Germany has the fear that if they stick to that agreement, the Americans will block money transfers trying to get into Iran. So I thought, things are slowly changing. A lot of these trade agreements America is kind of out of, and yeah, I just feel like America is maybe pulling back, becoming more national, and which could be a good thing, and it could be a bad thing. But I think their time and their dominance on having the dollar as the global reserve currency, I'm not saying it's necessarily coming to an end, but I think it's just going to keep being less and less. I think countries are going to be using their own currencies for international trade, and obviously cryptocurrencies. I think that's going to become more and more popular with governments. I mean, I'm sure governments are soon going to start buying into cryptocurrency. It just depends on which government breaks rank first. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely agree with the chat who says that the competitor to Swift is Bitcoin and that Bitcoin's already there. But definitely countries like Germany and other countries are going to seek a way to transfer money without the US's influence. I agree with you. The US, in a shocking move under Trump, has pulled back from several international agreements, whether it's backing out of the Asian Economic Group, or backing out of the Iran deal, or backing out of the Paris Climate Accords, or attempting to what he's been doing to NATO, what he's been doing to the G7, I think it is now, so on and so forth. We're seeing a full pullback of America. And as everyone knows, that's only going to create a vacuum. And inside of that power vacuum, someone, whether it be China, Germany, Russia, some other country, is going to rise and fill that void. So it's a less stable world than it used to be. Free trade kept us away from war, and it was good for 150, 200 years. But I guess we're going to give something else a try. So
My prediction would be probably Germany leading a block of Europe. I mean, obviously got the European Union, but I think the European Union is going to go through major changes, and it is going through major changes. I think Germany will come out to be, a powerhouse once again. I know Germany has said that they don't want to kind of, be the king of Europe, so to speak. But when Germany is in that position, they normally do really, really well. So I'm kind of looking to a more powerful Europe. I know that Russia and Germany have an oil pipeline, which the Americans, they don't like that happening, but that is happening. So, yeah, I really do see things happening in Germany and whatnot. And I see cryptocurrencies, and I see Bitcoin going forward, making countries have to be more responsible with their monetary policies. I mean, Bitcoin in itself is a great monetary policy. It's a deflationary currency, as we know. You can't censor Bitcoin, and a lot of citizens are going to say, "Hey, if my country starts to be irresponsible with the currency, we're just going to move on. We're just going to put our money into Bitcoin." So a lot of countries are going to obviously want to incentivize their citizens to use their national currency instead of putting all their wealth into Bitcoin. And they're going to have to do that by being responsible with their national currencies. And yeah, I'm really hoping to see at some point a country which really takes a hold of Bitcoin and really goes with it, makes it, I know Japan's made it legal tender, but I mean really adopt it alongside their national currency. I think that would be, when that happens, that would be a very good and interesting thing to behold. I know China is censoring, the Great Firewall of China. They're actually blocking, including VPNs, access to Bittrex and a slew of other crypto exchanges. So that was some news I came across today. So yeah, I think China's having another wee crackdown. So I'm not sure how that will all pan out, but I mean, Bitcoin's here to stay, and yeah, I just can't wait to see the future of it. And even like in the next 1, 2, 3 years time, it's it's just going to be amazing how it changes the world.
Definitely agree with that. And I think there's a lot of countries getting interested in Bitcoin. And as sad as it may be for the rest of the world that there's going to be general chaos and more chaos, less stability, that's actually good for Bitcoin. When someone has a perfectly good Asian economic union that you could use as a counterbalance against China, an attempt to keep China down in the region, to keep China as a smaller power than a giant out of control power, and someone leaves that agreement, you're weaker in the world. It's more likely that China is going to be an out of control power. When someone has a decent deal with Iran and you leave it so that you have no deal at all, so you have absolutely nothing, the world is weaker, the world is less safe. And just like we have great allies in Europe who have been with us through wars in the past, and we start to weaken those agreements, we are getting weaker too. So none of these nationalist arguments work on me. I've read about them in the 20s and 30s, and we had the Know Nothing Party. We had all these other parties. We were going to withdraw from everything. The United States didn't join the League of Nations, and it led right to World War II. So yeah, bang that national drum right when we go to World War II. Good luck with that in the chat. So
Yeah. I've always, I don't know, just maybe because I'm here in New Zealand and, I'm just so far removed from a lot of things, and you kind of get to kind of look at the world. Every country has its own sensibilities. There are things which you might say to an American or a British person or a German person or a Kiwi like myself, and, you might think nothing of it, but it might offend someone's national sensibilities. So I'm sorry if I do offend anyone. But I've always kind of looked at America as, a lot of the founders of America came out of Europe. They wanted to escape, papal rule. They didn't like, not being able to have freedom of religion. They didn't like being under kings and whatnot. So when America was founded, I've always kind of thought of it as a country with no king. It's a democracy. It's got a constitution. It's a republic. And it also has no religious leader. There's no pope to speak of. There's no imam to speak of. So it's always had those kind of two pillars of no, freedom of religion with no pope, and kind of a government with no king and checks and balances. And I really feel that's that constitutional republic that you've got there, that's really been a powerhouse, and people have wanted to come and be part of the American experiment. And back in the day, you could like when I think of America, I think of not having much regulation. Like you could go to America, you could set up shop, you could put out your shingle, and I don't know, be a doctor at one point. But over time, not to promote Trump, but Trump did say, that there have been a lot of regulations, and I see it in my own country. Every time we have a new government sworn into New Zealand, it's not as if they're reducing the regulations; they're making more and 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 more laws. So I think after a while, that kind of free market gets really regulated. And that's not to say that we want coal to pollute the air or anything like that, but it is to say that sometimes when countries go along, they don't necessarily always get better with freedoms. Sometimes those freedoms get more and more diminished. And yeah, I've heard things about the Patriot Act over there and whatnot. So I just sometimes think people kind of forget the actual and this is coming from a New Zealander, so I probably know what I'm talking about, but maybe people kind of forget the heritage of America. I always hear about people saying America's a great democracy, and I'm always like, well, America's actually a constitutional republic. Granted it is a democracy, but it's also a constitutional republic first.
well,
And people,
it's easy to forget right now that we're a constitutional republic, because part of a constitutional republic is having three equal branches: the judiciary, the legislative, and the president, right? The executive. You have three different branches, and it's really sad what's happened recently. There seems to be no Congress. It's a shocking situation. The founders didn't keep this in mind. They didn't have a theory for what they would do if the Congress completely failed to show up. But the values of not having a king is something that we're seeing play out day after day right here in America. One of the things about being king is that you're above the law. Napoleon Bonaparte said, "I am the law," right? He was the law. The emperor is above the law, right? And that means small laws, big laws, all laws. You can break the laws if you become emperor, right? The American system's not supposed to be that. We had a presidential election. It looks like some people might have cheated. They might have broken the rules. They might have paid money to other people to get them to shut up in order to win the election. And that's called breaking the law. The theory that we're testing out right now is whether or not the presidency is like a finish line. And once you cross the finish line, you get the magical powers to break the law. There could also be another finish line on the end of this where you say, after your 4 years are up, then we're going to get you for all those parking tickets. But we don't know about that, right? We're testing that out right now in the courts, on TV, in public opinion, whether or not the king is above the law. And we're going to find out. I mean, the most recent statements are absolutely horrifying from a law and order perspective. The president is in charge of law and order, and he went on TV yesterday and he said, "No snitching." He said, "Do not cooperate with the government." He is the government, right? So we're in a strange situation, and I know my friends in the chat are feverishly typing, and they're very upset because, of course, this is a rogue government, and Trump is fighting the rogue government, and they're well down that story and that rabbit hole. But just for a second, if you guys are, if you might be wrong on the whole conspiracy theory thing, right? If you might be wrong on the whole conspiracy theory thing, then you have a guy who's in charge of the legal department saying, don't cooperate with the legal department. All of our systems are done on snitching. They're all done on plea bargaining. That's how the legal system works today. That's a different debate to have. You don't have that debate when you're up for a crime. I'm up for a crime, so now it's time to debate whether or not that's a crime. That's not how it works. So it's very interesting, and it is very polarizing too. People are very much split one side down the other side. They're going to be filling it with invective and conspiracy theories with no facts, and we're just going to have to see how that goes.
It's really hard. I try to follow what's happening over there, but it is really hard to follow it sometimes. It's hard to know what isn't. There's a lot of pettifogging, so there's a lot of little nitpicking all the time. So sometimes it's hard to know what is, breaking the law over there, what the media is just kind of, a storm in a teacup kind of thing. But I mean, I love America. I love using the GPS system to be able to find where I'm going here in New Zealand. I love Windows. I love a lot of things that America has done, which has, meant that I can have a better life in my part of the world. But America scares me a little bit as well. I mean, I just feel like everyone wants Trump to fail in some ways. And I mean, I don't want, America to fail. I think America, there's a lot of great things about America. There's a lot of innovations and technologies that, we're enjoying Skype right now. And that's because of America, and if America was to really step back from the world stage, I mean, I don't know if that would be a good thing for, I mean, there are a lot of countries that would probably cheer, but I don't know if that would be a good thing for the world. But I mean, maybe America's talking a bit like a dragon. Maybe it needs to kind of get back to its roots of, hey, it's a, constitutional republic. We have freedom of speech. You have freedom of religion. And get back to actually helping the people, because all of this, Trump's done this, Trump's done that. I mean, like you say, I mean, Congress needs to be actually doing things to help the people. And you're such a rich country over there. I mean, when I buy Bitcoin, Thomas, I'm buying it with New Zealand dollars. I mean, we're 65, 66 cents against the US dollar. So, I mean, you're so lucky over there that you actually have such a strong currency. I mean, a lot of people around the world I mean, when I think of buying $20 worth of Bitcoin in terms of American dollars, it's, probably like $15 or, $16, something like that, depending on the day. So, I mean, I think sometimes people don't really know how lucky they are. And I think there's been a lot of wealth and consumerism take over America. And I think a lot of people have become really detached to the plight of their fellow citizen, which is really, really sad. But before I go, I just wanted to say a couple of things about money, because I know you're talking about Richard Hart and Roger Ver and things like that. Is that all right?
Well, let's see. I want to agree with you first. I think we used to be citizens in this country, and a citizen implies responsibility. It implies that you take part in the discussion and the debate, but also that you have a reason and that you're trying to serve a society, that you're trying to make something better, that you're trying to create something beyond yourself. And I think we've lost that as we became consumers. Now that we're consumers, we just want for me, 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 me. And there's not a lot of anything else out there that I see in anyone. They're all just looking for a way to get something over on the other guy. And a lot of the Bitcoin and the price action and the altcoins and all of this stuff is just more of the same old greed. Certainly, we know that as humans that we are greedy, but we do have the choice to try to go above that. We have the choice to try to do something better. And I just wonder if we're trying to make that choice because we've become consumers and we're not citizens anymore. And when you look at the world and all the horrible things in it, I used to say, and especially after 9/11 happened, that we should, bomb the world with hospitals, and that George W. Bush should have told people to do something and told people to take part in their communities or have a local baseball game or anything, right? Build a baseball park or a community center in your town. Take part in your local community. Instead, he told people to go shopping. He said, go shopping, support the economy, wave the flag. And, with what we got right now, this business leader, he would probably say the same kind of thing. So I think it's better to be a citizen in the world, even though that's, again, you say world is called conspiracy theory or whatever. But I think the good people can take that back too. It doesn't have to be always a conspiracy theory. Everything's always negative. But go ahead, caller. Do you want to finish up? Thanks so much, Zach, for the call and closing. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll just finish up quickly. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, go shopping. I'll just touch on that. I mean, that's what happens under a fractional reserve banking system when you're pumping out the cash and the money's getting more and more worthless. I mean, since the 1950s, dollar's gone down, probably 90%. So, I mean, that's what the economy is based on, is when you've got fractional reserve, it is go out there and spend, spend, spend. When you've got a deflationary currency, it is save money, the economy is going to function, and you don't have to actually go out and buy all this plastic rubbish, which has been imported from China. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about money, and I will say you said greed, which is great. And well, it's not great, but I mean, greed is not good. I mean, greed is wanting more than is fair or necessary, and a lot of people do want to heap up treasure for goodness knows when. I mean, you can only live one day at a time. But I just think people have to watch that the jealousy, their envy, and their covetousness. I always think, envy's all right. To me, envy's always been like, oh wow, this person has a nice house or they've got here in life. And you're like, yeah, I really look up to that person. I want to know how they got it. I'll ask them, how did you get all these wonderful things? I'd love to have these too. And I think there's nothing wrong with envy, but I think jealousy's really terrible, because jealousy is more like you see your neighbor has something and you're jealous and you don't want them to have it. You wish bad things on your neighbor, and that really destroys the soul. And also, I think people have to watch not to be covetous, which is when you want something so bad that you can't be happy without it. And I think we all have to sometimes take a step back and actually adjust what we want. I mean, a lot of people out in crypto world want a Ferrari. Well, I can guarantee you that your Ferrari, if you do get it, might cause you more stress than it's worth. You're going to be wanting to, put alarms in it. It's going to cost you a fortune to run and maintain. You'll be scared stiff driving it that you might scratch it. Sometimes the things that we own end up owning us. But on the flip side, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting Bitcoin to go up in value. I mean, I'm invested in Bitcoin. I do check the price, but sometimes I think to myself, well, I'm actually already a Bitcoin millionaire because I have more than 1,000,000 Satoshis. And most of the people listening to this show are millionaires in Satoshis. And one of these days, those Satoshis are going to be worth a whole lot more than they are now. And I just wish all your listeners the very best. And I'll let someone else call through now. But it's always great talking to you, Thomas. And I think you've really found your niche in this talk show. And I hope you keep it up.
All right. Thanks so much for the call, Zach. Give us a call anytime.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. And you can call us now on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. It's echoing again. Very strange. I'm going to quit Skype again. And we're at 518-600-1949. Echo. So much for the system. It worked so good for so long. I wonder why it changed. Anyway, we're keeping track of the price of Bitcoin, which is $6,466.04. They must have launched a new upgrade to Skype where every time you have a call, it echoes afterwards. That's the new feature. Or as they called it in the Steve Martin classic LA story, oh, that's the new cruelty. And that's what you get when you use free software like Skype or Google. You are the product. So whenever they want to upgrade the product, they go ahead and they do what they want because it's the new cruelty. And I think at the time it was Captain Picard running the restaurant being cruel to Chevy Chase in the great Steve Martin movie LA Story. And just looking at the map here, the United States, look at all these calls. I went ahead and marked all the Mustafa ones so we can see the path of Mustafa as he goes from the Great Lakes down to the south, even all the way down here to Laredo. That's far. But look at the United States. Look at the Bitcoiners all over the United States who have called into that show. Isn't that cool? How cool is that? But we were talking about Trump and everything was getting super political. And what were they saying in the chat here? I saw one that was pretty good. He said, here it is. He says, Trump voters have jobs and are not victims. And this kind of misses the point. You can have a job and still be a consumer, right? We're all consumers on the left and on the right. Everyone's a consumer because we're in a consumer society. And consumer just means that you buy things and that really everything in your life is about buying things. And people might have some kind of a side thing like church or 12-step programs or politics or maybe a TV show you really like The Bachelor. And that could be your religion. That could be your replacement. But at the end of the day, you're still a consumer. You're just buying things. There's a lot of mean talk about socialism. They don't like socialism in the chat. Moonshine Fuel says socialism is the back door to communism. And he's sorry that Bernie didn't win, but our country fought against communism for good reason. And what I worry about all this anti-socialism talk is I don't hear a lot of the other side saying that capitalism is so great. Capitalism produces winners and losers, thousands of losers, hundreds of thousands of losers. It sounds like everyone in the chat is all anti-socialism and pro-capitalism. That seems kind of dogmatic. I would unpack that and I would wonder if the ruling capitalist system wants you to keep believing in it. I'm not even sure this is true, but I think it's just fun to think about things from a different point of view and to really think about ideas. Whereas other people see an idea and they have to put it back in the box and they're saying, oh, he's saying that because of Bernie Sanders, or oh, he's saying that because of socialism. So once we put the ideas in these boxes, they can't interact with each other. And we need our ideas to be loose and free flowing and moving around, like that Joe Rogan show. That was a good show. That's interesting stuff because Joe Rogan allows it to go everywhere. He says Bernie has 3 houses and an Audi. Good for Bernie. Let's see what else they said here. Didn't Hillary say people like Trump ought to be president because they can't be bought? That's funny. Too bad Trump doesn't actually have the money and seems like he has ties to Russian autocrats. And if you look at his real estate empire and you wonder, why won't he let us see his taxes? And maybe it's because of these ties. So you always have to wonder, like a magician, he's showing you one hand. What's he got in the other hand? I always wonder. People are enjoying the show. They like the live callers. If you like the live callers on the talk show, give us another call here. We've got about 30 minutes left on the show. We have time for maybe 3 or 4 more calls, or we can just keep chatting with the chat. You can call us now at 518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. Let's see what they say in the chat. How can we have free trade when we have minimum wage and other labor laws while China and other countries have slaves that work for pennies a day? It's not really a fair deal. And that's how trade agreements work. We make a trade agreement with China where they bring up some of their workers, and we are probably bringing down some of our workers, and we try to meet them on an equal level, something like that. We try to improve the relations for the rest of the world through free trade. So basically, they build a factory in the lowest, cheapest place in the world until it becomes too expensive, and then they go build a factory somewhere else. The only problem is how destructive that is to the places they leave behind. But in general, the idea is the same. The rising tide lifts all boats. That's how free trade works. Also, we found that countries that are more connected by trade are less likely to go to war with each other. It's also tactically, they're just dependent. If you can't get the metal to build the bomber without, Estonia, for example, then you're not going to go to war with Estonia because they have the metal that you need to build the bomber you'd use to fight them. I know it seems absurd, but it actually works. That's how we've actually had less wars, less massive wars in the world. Moonshine Fuel has the familiar idea. People think Hillary would have started World War III. There's a lot of that on the other side, that anything Trump does can't be that bad because Hillary would have started World War III. You can see how that's a generic disadvantage. You can use it for any situation. Trump has broken social norms, cultural norms, actual laws. But if Hillary was president, it would be World War III. You see how that doesn't work? You see how you can justify anything with that? It's a bad, bad thing. You don't want universal justifications where you can say, well, it's fine that Trump has started murdering people because, if Hillary were president, it'd be World War III, et cetera, et cetera. It doesn't do it. So Anthony Monat says, you can't make a better world by being selfish. I think that's pretty true. People better watch out for that. They say cronyism is a problem. I'd agree with that. Cronyism, bad bureaucrats, systems that allow things like that. One of the things that we're doing right now is we're building better systems. One of the things that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency allow us to have is a system that can be double checked. If you look at Bitcoin, almost everything in Bitcoin is double checked. The code that the coders produce, the blocks that the miners produce, the blockchain that the miners leave behind. All of these things are checked by many eyes. Some of them just digital eyes, right? AI eyes. They can see, does this math problem add up? Does this multiplication problem add up? And if we can take these ideas to bureaucracy, maybe we can have a check and balance system of a bureaucracy that you guys could actually support. I know you don't like bureaucracy. You don't like the state, right? But we need the state for certain things. It gives us benefits and advantages. It keeps the peace, etc. There's a lot of benefits that we get from the state. And maybe what we should look for, rather than just saying no state, state of anarchy, everything goes back to hunting and gathering, no more shipping, we don't bring you food anymore, everything gets set back. Instead of that being our idea or our goal, maybe it could be efficient state, or maybe it could be interlocking proven blockchain state, right? Where we can see everything and we can audit everything, auditable state, auditable bureaucracy, maybe something like that. And that's why my thoughts lead more towards pragmatism, right? I'm looking for a solution that works. When I see the Venus Project or Star Trek The Next Generation, I think, wow, that's great. I'd really like to live in that future, but how do we get there? And they don't have a solution that works for that. The same thing if you ask a libertarian about the amazing utopian future with no government, they don't have a solution for that. Who's going to keep the meat from being poisoned? Oh, well, why would they poison the meat? Because the corporation, they're in a hurry. They accidentally dump chlorine in some meat, and they could not fulfill their order, or they could deliver a bunch of chlorine beef burgers. And I hate to tell you, but they'll deliver the chlorine beef burgers. At the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire, they locked the doors to keep the employees inside. They had no fire escapes on the buildings. The employees were just part of the factory that it was okay to burn up. Businesses, which are groups of people, remember, an individual, a human being is pretty much okay, but a group of human beings, you never know what you're going to get, right? Corporation, by definition, is always a group of human beings. So sometimes they're going to say our profits are more important than the larger group of human beings or even a smaller group of human beings. And that's why we have to keep an eye on corporations. Remember, corporations were originally chartered to serve the state. They had a purpose, like the Dutch East India Corporation, the purpose of opening up new trade routes for the governments of the Netherlands. They had a purpose, right? Now our corporations are just to get the most money. And they're not even to get the most money and then invest it in America. They're just to get the most money. This is a problem, right? This is something out of control. These are the people who are running things. But again, ignore that. Worry about your pizza parties and your queues. It's not the corporations. Remember, all of your like anti-training and everything, it's not the corporations. Just remember that. Yeah. They have all the power, they have all the control, but it's not them. So, see what's going on in the chat. Oh, it's breaking down. We've got Nazis. We're sponsored by George Soros. Look at us showing your chat on the air, talking about you. People don't like it, but they won't call in. Here it is. Here's how you test if someone's a troll or if they actually have ideas. If you actually have ideas and you can defend yourself, call me right now at 518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network. There it is. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. Kind of echoing though. Check.
Hi there.
Hello. What's it calling from?
Hi, my name is William. I'm calling from South Africa.
All right. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
Well, a few points. Firstly, I'd like to just say I was having a discussion with Max on Twitter with regards to capitalism. He had very good words for capitalism, and I actually replied to him and just gave him my opinion that although capitalism is the best thing that we have, it is not perfect, right? And I think you also alluded to that earlier when you said, capitalism may be bad because, in some ways, because it can generate many slaves in countries like China, and where people's rights aren't necessarily protected. So I totally agree with you that capitalism, is not necessarily all good, although it must be said and acknowledged that capitalism basically got us where we are at the moment, in terms of the world economy, etc.
Absolutely. I agree with that. But what I think people say is they get into this idea of the free market and that the free market can solve everything. And they just want to unleash capitalism. And at least for myself, from a historical perspective, during the 20s and 30s, and even before that, we tried unleashed capitalism, right? There were no worker protection laws. There were no weekends. There were no 8-hour shifts. The corporation worked you as hard as they could, and then they discarded you and they got a new worker. The brilliant new system of mass production allowed for workers to just become cogs in the system. Certainly, there were some knowledge workers and designers, but everyone else was just a cog, leading us to where we are today. And that's why I would argue for some controls on the market, and other people would argue for no controls. But I had you muted, so go ahead, respond. Sorry.
Yeah, so I totally agree. I think in the late 90s, it was said that people in China would work for food, right? And in the 90s, China was already producing much of the world's consumables and plastic and rubber products. So from that point of view, it's clear that capitalism failed the worker in China. So I absolutely agree. Even today, there are not capitalism isn't perfect at all. Even with some controls, right? So that's just I just wanted to make that point. I really enjoy your show, and I look forward to following you and checking you out in the future. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much for the call. I definitely agree with you. Capitalism isn't perfect. It's probably the best system we have, though, for right now. And we just have to find a middle ground, something that's a little bit of both. And that's really what I'm arguing for here is a middle ground and new ideas. So many people seem completely shut off to new ideas. They just can't grasp any. They must come from, some kind of fake thing, some kind of rigged system, all these kind of things. But they don't. Sometimes you just want to discuss other ideas. And what's interesting about the chat right now is that they're all talking about Hillary. And Hillary hasn't been in the news for months, guys. In the news today is President Trump saying that people shouldn't flip and that you shouldn't be a government witness. And so this means if you're in a trial against a corporation like a chemical company that's been polluting the rivers, or if you're in a trial against a gangster who's murdered lots of people and you're going to be a government witness, what he's saying is no flipping and that it ought to be illegal. He's describing the way in which the entire justice system works. So again, you have no problem with that because Hillary used a private email server. Tell me about it. And as always, if you'd like to call, you can call in now at 518-600-1949 or on Skype at World Crypto Network, all one word. We were getting some echo earlier, so I've restarted some of the windows, opened and closed them. So if it wasn't available before, you can give it a try now. It should be available on both Skype and Google Voice. You can call in and tell me all about the pizza parties and all about everything. Here it is. Hello, caller. You're live on the World Crypto Network. Echoing a little bit. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yeah. So this is Script Loco. I'm out here in TJ as usual.
All right. What's on your mind about Bitcoin today?
So I have this thought about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies in general. So my thought today is about Bcash. And I know it's controversial to say that, but Bcash should just be pegged to the dollar, because the whole thesis of Bcash is that it's supposed to be something that merchants can adopt. And I think that there's this whole weird phenomenon going on where people cannot separate the price increase, the mooning, as it were, from the fact that if I'm just some guy that wants to, I'm a barber. Let's say I'm a barber, and I want to accept Bitcoin. What's wrong with there being a cryptocurrency pegged to the dollar? Obviously, we have Tether. Obviously, we have that. So it's already taking care of that. So the Bcash supporters should really just get on board with Tether, because why would anybody want a currency that's going to be fluctuating so much in price? Over here in Mexico, over here in TJ, right on the border, I mean, every day I see little kids trying to convert currency, and it's a nightmare. They're trying to convert the currency from dollars to pesos every day, and it's always changing. And there's arbitrage and there's all this stuff. So my thought today was, I think people are getting a little bit carried away with this idea that Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency should go up in value if the whole point, it's a conflict of interest. If the currency goes up or down in value, then you probably shouldn't promote merchants to accept it, because then they never know what's going on. Whereas, you know, if you just want to store your value and the thesis is that, you know, the price is going to go up because, you know, Bitcoin is a superior currency or something, that's an investment thing. It's not something that you transact in. So to me, the Bitcoin Cash people should just get on board with the idea of pegging, rather than acting like their currency is worth $600 or $500, whatever it is right now. They should just get on board with the idea of pegging it to the dollar and put their money where their mouth is.
Well,
Obviously, Bitmain has lost a lot of money on Bitcoin Cash, but I don't see anybody saying this in the community. It's kind of hilarious, because it seems pretty obvious to me that if their whole agenda is to make something, if Roger Ver's agenda is to make a currency that's going to be really quick and easy to peg to the dollar, then let's do it right. Because Bitcoin Cash is just as volatile. In fact, it's almost correlated. In fact, it is essentially is correlated to the volatility of Bitcoin itself. So I think that the best, if Roger Ver's agenda was to make Bitcoin acceptable all around the world as a currency, then the best thing that he could do for Bitcoin Cash would be to actually make it pegged to some kind of other currency so that it was stabilized. But that's not what's happening. Instead, it's like a little baby of I mean, it's no different than any altcoin. So because it goes up and down in value in relation to Bitcoin. So anyway, I just had this thought today about.
Well, let me agree with part of what you said. I do think that merchants want a dollar-backed currency. I think that works for merchants. A lot of merchants were big fans of the BitPay system, where you get Bitcoin and they trade it for dollars right away, and then you just get dollars in your bank account. The only problem with this system is it requires trust. The thing about Tether is that allegedly, for every Tether printed, there's a dollar in a bank account. That's why the price of Tether is the same way. When they print more Tether, they're supposed to put more dollars in the bank account. And of course, no one knows where this bank account is, who owns it, if there's enough money in there. So there is a good reason for Bcashers not to want to be like Tether and to be linked to a dollar, because it's linked to trust, right? It requires trust. If we had a gold-backed Bitcoin, it would be the same thing. I'd have to have gold bars in a vault, and you'd have to trust me that they're actually there. Part of the genius about Bitcoin is there is no trust. The only thing the network's reporting is how many Bitcoin there are and who has them. That's really all it reports. But yeah, I don't think there's any reason for Bcash. This whole merchant push has made no sense since the beginning. They did it back in the day in like 2013 in San Francisco. They gave everyone tablets. They told them all that they took Bitcoin. They put them on CoinMarketCap. And then for the next 2 years, no one shopped there. The tablets ran out of batteries. The employee who knew how to use the tablet quit. All these things are still on the coin market map everywhere. I don't know why Roger thought that was a good idea to repeat that strategy when it had obviously failed. Bitcoin becoming a store of value first will lead us to eventually becoming a currency. And all of this instability is really a result of there not being enough Bitcoin buyers and not being enough sellers. We just need to be a larger market, and then we'll have less instability.
Well, like I can see the need case, the use case for having some kind of a stable crypto. I can see that, and then I deal with it every day. But that's why it just seems like it just shouts the fact that they want Bitcoin Cash to go up in value, And I agree with you. You're right. I mean, there's been a problem with this whole dollar pegged or any currency pegged crypto. We've been seeing it for a long time. But what I'm saying is that that's the research that needs to happen. The research that needs to happen is, if these fools really want a crypto that is acceptable by merchants, then they need to really do the research and take the time.
I think the problem is, if you try to back it with anything, it's just going to require trust. I just think they don't want to require trust. I definitely agree with you. They also want the price of Bcash to go up. Jihan had that slide saying that Bcash would be $100,000 a coin in 5 years, something like that. So it's very important to them. But what I'm really trying to hit home here is the only reason that the dollar is quote unquote stable is because there are so many million of buyers of dollars on one side and so many million sellers of dollars on the other side, that if the dollar moves like 10 cents, a whole bunch of people are going to react and they're going to make choices. And this way, the dollar can't move but 10 cents or but $1. If the dollar starts to move, this balance, this equilibrium of buyers and sellers is off. But just in general, we have so few buyers and sellers in Bitcoin that if one of the buyers is really rich and decides he wants to buy a whole bunch, he can drive up the whole market. And if one of the buyers has a bunch of Bitcoin and wants to sell, they could drive down the whole market. It's nothing to do with Bitcoin. It's just to do with the time that we just aren't very old and we don't have very many people.
I agree. And you know, I guess the thing that all I was saying was, I think that people need to really start thinking about the fact, whenever somebody tells you that they want crypto for merchant adoption, then they have to accompany that statement with the idea of how they're doing research to make it as pegged as possible to the, whatever local currency that they're trying to get adoption in. Because people will say that, Bitcoin isn't fast enough. I mean, we've all seen the tweet. We all know Bitcoin, there's no problem with the scaling debate right now. So, in order to push forward that argument, people had better have something in their back pocket to say, okay, well, this is how we're going to peg it to whatever local currency that we're in the jurisdiction of, because otherwise it's silliness. It's silliness, because we all know that what they really want is the price to go up. That's what they're really talking about. It doesn't matter whether it's Bcash or whether it's Bcash Classic or whatever fork, or I don't know, whatever thing they come up with that, Crypt Local Coin or whatever, whatever it is that they're going to come up with, they're going to have to figure out, if they really want merchant adoption, then they're going to have to figure out a way to make it stable. And
the other issue there,
but my closing thought, which I wanted to ask you about, because I'm a weirdo, is and once again, this is Crypt Loco. I have my SoundCloud. Check out my SoundCloud. It's Tales from the Crypto sound on the SoundCloud blockchain. It's out there. But anyway, I got a lot of stuff out there. It's kind of weirdo stuff. But anyway, the thing is my last thought that I wanted to leave you with is, if you were to have met Satoshi, what kind of haircut do you think Satoshi would have?
All right, it's a good one. Well, obviously you want him to have
out there. You know what I mean? There's the gender neutral haircuts. There's the buzz cut. There's the bowl cut. There's a lot of haircuts.
Obviously, in your idealized version of Satoshi, he has a bright green mohawk, right? Satoshi is the guy with the mohawk. He doesn't care. He's standing out in plain sight. His opinions are being ignored because he looks like a punk rocker, and this fits his attitude, which is also that of the punk rocker. But to go a little bit more close to home, we must imagine Satoshi bald, right? Captain Picard,
That's the most
myself, a
efficient
lot
thing,
of
right?
other people.
I would say the same. I would say, I just have to chime in and say that I would say this. I feel like Satoshi would be bald.
the,
The most
efficiency.
efficient haircut.
Yeah. Yeah, the least amount of upkeep. I don't think he'd know the names of the various haircuts that you reeled off there, bowl cut and so on and so forth. I always tell the barber, I was like, I want it shorter. And for a long time, my main concern was it's in my eyes. I can't see properly. Get it out of my eyes. And that's not so much a problem anymore, as it turns out. But yeah, I imagine Satoshi bald.
Yes, I agree. I think Satoshi would be bald.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Crip Loco, for your call. Give us a call anytime.
Take care. I'm out here, TJ.
Yeah.
You ever on in TJ, just let me know.
Definitely, man. I'll give you a call. But thanks so much to everybody who called in. We had a great time hanging with you and a good time in the chat, too. It gets a little political down there, and I'm fine with that. I like that it goes back and forth and that you guys have your own opinions and you're all fired up and you're ready. You know, this is a socialist and that's a statist and this is the real truth about the thing. And there really is a basement and all that kind of stuff. You guys are totally on top of it. But I would just say, try to take in some alternative information. Try to think about what the real motives might be, why people might be doing this or that, and why someone might say, they call it flipping and it ought to be illegal. So, but we had a great time hanging with you, talking about Bitcoin, talking about politics and other things. Satoshi would be bald. On the merchant thing, one more thing, merchant adoption isn't broken. I had no trouble using my credit card or using cash or using an ATM card or any of those things yesterday, and I doubt any of you did as well. So let's not try to fix a problem that isn't broken. I never got into this saying, I'm having trouble buying my coffee. I need Bitcoin. I got into this saying, I'm having trouble holding on to my currency for 100 years and it keeping any value. I'm having trouble holding on to my currency and it keeping any value because they're digitally printing this currency every night, and I don't even know how much of it there is. When I found out there was 21 million units of Bitcoin and that it was going to be printed in this halvening structure where every 4 years the amount of production goes down by half, I said, wow, that's a deflationary currency. I sure would like to give that a try. And I didn't need to use it for coffee. I also thought it was really neat that you could send Bitcoin over the internet. Stuff like this Support World Crypto Network page right here is the future of YouTube that YouTube doesn't even want. Because YouTube doesn't get a cut when you donate directly with Bitcoin, nor does Twitter or any other social media platform. You are going over the system, donating directly to the World Crypto Network. And while we're not that controversial or sensationalistic with our lefty, libertarian, socialist views, whatever have you, anarcho-capitalism, splitter, minarchist, manarchist, janarchist, fanarchist, blanarchist, whatever it is, all those things, you can still use Bitcoin to donate to us. Just like if we were WikiLeaks, an organization you might not support, you could donate to them too. Bitcoin as a money doesn't care. That's the power of Bitcoin. That's censorship resistance. That's something that Bcash doesn't have because Bcash has larger nodes, which need larger servers, which means there'll be less nodes, which means it's easier to shut down. What's exciting about Bitcoin is that it's hard to shut down and that it's deflationary. I don't care if they take it for coffee. Although the Lightning Network is very cool for coffee, good for small payments, micro payments, other things we used to talk about with Bitcoin, and things that we might talk about again. So that's what it's all about. It's all about the Bitcoin. But the politics things come up and we have to talk about them. I think we have to be stoic and pragmatic. We have to take each decision on its own, and we must consult the history of the past to see what we can learn about that decision, to see if we want to do the same thing or try something different. But we're out of time here on Bitcoin Talk Show. We hope you guys will join us again tomorrow. We're going to talk about this and other things. Be sure to subscribe down below, give us a thumbs up and a share, and hit that bell for the notifications. Until next time, bye-bye.